Hello and welcome to lesson 5. I'm so glad you made it this far. So in this video, we will be talking about a really important topic and it's called fixtures. And in this lesson, what I've done is I've tried to explain it to you with an analogy, and it's an analogy that would surprise you. So let's get started. What are playwright fixtures? So I was thinking hard on how to explain this, and I came up with this analogy of a stage. So on a stage, you have got a lot of things going on. So you have got a stage environment, which is the background, the lighting, the backdrops. You have got people on the stage, which is basically who are performing, the actors. So let's imagine the actors over here are our test cases that are running. But actors need that environment, that background, that backdrop, that lighting, all the things that are happening to make the actors or the test run over here are fixtures. So what would be the test results if we continue with this analogy? If I move this slightly up, the audience over here are your test results. Now, if we continue with this analogy and we try to understand what are the crews over here. So the crews are doing setup and tear down of the environment. So they are a part of the setup and tear down process. And when we talk about multiple plays, like there's one play and we have got this environment, we want to reuse some of the bits from one environment into another environment. So that's the scope of the fixtures. Now let's actually dive deep into it using the Playwright documentation. So according to Playwright, test fixtures are used to establish environment for each test. Remember the actors on the image that I showed earlier? So all the backdrops and lighting and everything that we use to establish the environment for the actors who are on the stage, giving the actors everything they needed to basically do the play, that's fixtures. Now they're talking about the scope of the fixtures. So can it be isolated, like only for particular, for example, imagine a light that is on one of the actors and he's performing, that light is only on that actor. So it can be isolated for a particular test. It can be isolated for the whole stage. Imagine there are multiple stages. So it could be isolated for one stage. It could be isolated for multiple stages, by which I mean workers. So it can be shared, but that is how you define the scope. And then when we continue with fixtures, you can group tests based on their meaning instead of common setup. So yeah, exactly like I was mentioning about the backdrop and the curtains. You could potentially say 1 light, 2 light, 3 light, 4 light, but you can also say they're all lights. The top lights and the background environment lights, they're all lights. So you can group them together as well. So now in terms of the actual code, what does that mean? Like this whole analogy that I was going through. Basically, when you're writing test, you can see like in the previous example, we were using this kind of format, but where are the fixtures? Well, the answer is this page. So this page is doing a lot of things in the background for you. If you want to have a look at what it's doing, click on the link over here in the documentation, and this might seem familiar to people who are coming from any other test framework, where they had to set up the browser, set up the context, they had to set up the page, and then they were able to use the page object to go to another page. So my background, I've used Puppeteer, I've used Cypress, I've used Selenium. So I've done this kind of setup in all of those frameworks. But with Playwright, you can rely on fixtures. So fixtures are doing everything for us, and we are just using them. So the way you use fixtures is you just pass it into the test function, like page, and the browser setup, the context setup, everything is done for you, which makes the test simpler, more concise. So one of my colleagues basically is complaining about like why is the test code so long? Where does the test start? There's so many lines before even the test even starts. So this framework, which is Playwright, solves the problem of getting rid of all the boilerplate and just keeping the test in front of you. So here we have got test, and the fixture that we are getting has made it concise, and what we're doing is just using that fixture. So how many types of fixtures are there? There's a built-in fixture, which is like page, context, browser name, request. So all of these are built in. You can easily update them as well. So Playwright framework allows you to update it. By the way, this is more of a theory video. The reason I'm doing more theory in this one is in the next one, we will use this fixtures concept to implement page object model. So when we implement page object model, that is where you will see the strength of these fixtures. So when you're writing a production version of the framework, you need your code to be maintainable, you need your code to be manageable, you need your code to be readable. And for all those above reasons, you will have to use fixtures in your test code. I mean, imagine without fixtures, your code would look like this, right? So in this format, what's happening is you have got a to-do page. Imagine this is a page which has got the definition. You can see the class over here. So class to do, and it has got method go to, add to do, remove, and remove all. So without fixtures, you would have to initialize the page every time before the test starts, and you would have this before each function and after each function to set up the test and tear down the setup. But with fixtures, what you can do is you just specify like this is how you're creating the fixture. So most probably this won't be in the same test file, it would be outside, like in another file where you're creating all the fixtures. So this is how you create a fixture. So base.extend, and you because you're using TypeScript, so you specify the type, and the same thing that you did without the fixtures, which is initializing to do page, go to, and setting up one or two items. You did that over here. But to create a fixture, you use the keyword use, and then just say await use to do page. So the same name over here, just use the same name of the fixture, and this will create a fixture for you. And then, like you were doing the tear down in the after each method, after the fixture use is complete, you could just do the same tear down. The await basically will stop the code from execute the remove all function to execute before everything is done. So your test will run over here, and then the tear down will happen. So don't worry if you're writing the after each function just after the use statement. That's normal. So what would your test look like after implementing a fixture? Well, just remove this because this is not in this file. You will have the import statements and the test. So just a really concise version of your test because you are using fixtures. And it goes further in the documentation on how you can create your own fixtures. So again, we are using TypeScript. So in TypeScript, we have got like the two fixtures we have defined. These are the two types that we are defining in the myFixtures object. And then here we are creating a fixture. So you will always use base.extend, define the type, fixture 1, which is to do page, fixture 2, which is the settings page. And remember, you create a fixture using the use. So use the fixture value in the test. Same over here. Now, how do you use this fixture? So you have got a to do page and settings page fixture, right? So to use a fixture, you just pass it in like you were doing for the page, settings page, to do page, and page. So using the to do page, I can now call methods like add to do, something nice. But because I'm calling add to do.add to do, and I'm using a fixture, it will already have the setup, which is item 1, item 2, and this is where I'm adding item number 3, something nice. So I don't have to do the whole setup again. Fixtures has made my test concise, and then I can do the expect whatever I wanted. And like I said earlier, you can override fixtures which are built in as well. So here we are overriding the page fixture. So we will like wherever we are using the page, it will directly go to the base URL. And then, as I mentioned earlier about the scope of the fixtures, so you can define the scope. That could be a worker scope. So when Playwright test starts, they are parallelly running. They can be running on multiple workers. So you can define the scope by passing scope : the scope value. So over here, you can see we're creating a fixture using base.extend, and then we have got a use. So here we are doing the use command. This is how we are creating the fixture. And then after this, you just pass another object, which is scope. That's it. So that will create a fixture with a specific scope. And there's another way to do it. You can specify auto, and this auto will have an automatic fixture. So it can be set up for test, worker, and you don't have to list them directly. So, but it is slightly expensive as compared to defining a scope for per test or defining a scope per worker, because you know exactly when to start and when to end. This basically my understanding from reading the documentation is it starts early on, so it will stay in the memory longer. You can change the timeout for the fixture. So a test, normally the fixture depends on the test timeout. You can specify the timeout by, again, base.extend, use, and here in this object you can specify the timeout. And the fixture options, I'm not going to go in detail about the fixture option because we are not going to use that in the upcoming test creations, and this is just explaining you what would be the order if you are running the test. It's just going to complicate things for you. So the main thing to grasp in this video, like the main lesson that we need to learn, is what are fixtures. Remember the example of the theater where we have got test cases, we have got things happening in the background, and who's taking care of those things. Basically everything which is boilerplate is handled by fixtures, so your test becomes like bite size. Well done. You deserve a clap because you have completed the lesson about fixtures. You are almost ready to rewrite your framework or write a new framework from scratch because you understand the concept of fixtures in Playwright, and this is the backbone of Playwright production test implementation. So in the next video, we will be doing practical of the fixtures by implementing the page object model pattern, which is what Playwright documentation also suggests. And there are several examples that we will be looking at from real world. So keep watching.